We are back on Morning Line. Thanks for joining us on this Thursday. Nick Barris coming to you live from Studio A here in downtown Nashville, News Channel 5. We've got Clint Kelly, malpractice attorney, on with us this morning. And you are welcome to join us right now if you have a question or comment about a possible case you may have. And let's get to the lines. We may have some general questions, may have something specific. We'll go to James first. James, good morning. Hi, James.
Good morning, man. I have a question here.
Sure.
I had hernia surgery about 2 months ago. It healed fine. I have developed a seroma, which is a fluid sac. It's the size of a golf ball, no pain. I believe it's called a seroma. The surgeon told me to come back in February to see if it dissipates. He might have to stick a needle in it and drain it. Question, is that malpractice, pain and suffering? And do I have to pay another out-of-pocket cost for that procedure?
Okay. What do you
Too
think?
hard to tell, James. I don't know if the seroma is as a result of the hernia operation or whether it was misdiagnosed. It sounds like if it's the size of a golf ball, the question is whether it should have been diagnosed and dealt with beforehand. It sounds like, from what you're telling me, this is treatable. I don't hear anything from what you're telling me that says the prognosis is any worse than just having it removed with some time off and some pain and suffering. And in these cases, James, it's been my experience, juries tend to not compensate where there are temporary damages and the patient's going to heal. Juries tend to compensate in these cases where there are permanent, catastrophic, lifelong damages. That's the cases where the juries sit back and seriously consider the cases, because you have to remember in all of them, there's a heavy bias in favor of the hospital and the doctor, and to overcome that bias, you've got to have a really bad injury. So it sounds like this is a situation you're going to be lucky and it's treatable, as opposed to the unlucky folks who don't have a treatment option.
I think it's really important we emphasize that, and I appreciate his call. That was a good question. People may go through that. So what you're basically saying here is that, and we don't know if this was the case with James, but if a hospital or a doctor actually does make a mistake, and there's no question about it, but it's something that is not catastrophic and you're going to heal. Hey, you might have had some discomfort and it might have been an inconvenience, but you're going to get better and it can be treatable. Even though there was a clear-cut mistake, the odds are you're not going to get a settlement in a malpractice case. Is there a chance you could maybe get a break on the follow-up medical bill? Or is that kind of separate?
Yeah, I would certainly contact the hospital or the doctor. First of all, you want to inquire, James, about why this seroma is there, how it grew so large, and why it was missed, if that's the case. And then I always negotiate over medical bills. Medical bills are one of the most negotiable bills there are. And particularly when there is a whiff of malpractice, it's been my experience that the doctors, in particular hospitals, will waive the bill with the understanding that by doing that, the patient will likely not sue them. So at the very least, if I'm James, I would be running that down, find out why it occurred, and see if I can't negotiate that bill or for the treatment that's forthcoming, or have them waive the bill entirely.
This is what's so interesting. When I love talking to you, and over the years I've learned so much from you, and I've got to ask you just about how you just said everything is negotiable. And you know as well as I do, Clint, you are a different character because you have so much knowledge and you deal with this every day. The average person like me goes to the doctor's office, and we all know these days because of insurance, you don't even look at what the cost is for that shot I just got until you see it later and you have insurance do it. When you say you can negotiate everything to some degree, how do you do that? I mean, is that when you go in for your checkup and you say, Doc, okay, now how much for that? How much for this? Or, I mean, you know, tangibly speaking, especially if you're under the weather, that's a hard thing to do. But I mean, you're saying you can bring it up and say, look, no, I don't want to pay that much for that appendicitis.
Yeah. I don't believe that you can negotiate with front end, Nick, because no one ever really knows what the cost is going to be, do they? So what you do is you negotiate on the back end. And in particular, what you have to look at is what was charged and what is the proper price for it. I have never seen a hospital bill in my years of practice that was correct. So when you look it over, more likely than not, it's going to be overpriced. The hospitals know that. The government knows that through Medicare. You just compare a Medicare hospital bill to a private pay hospital bill, and you'll see what I'm talking about. The whole system is geared towards having the people with the best insurance covering or making up for the people who have either no insurance or Medicare and Medicaid. And that's where the price differences are. But when I say everything's negotiable, they have so many, I'm talking about the hospitals, there's so many people to have to bill and collect money from. It's generally, they look at it as, if they get paid, it's a win. If they don't get paid, it's a terrible loss. And they'll work out payment plans. They'll knock some off. I mean, I've always had good experience with negotiating with hospitals when the billing's excessive. And, if we're just talking a little bit higher than normal, then, of course you just pay it. You always want to pay your bills. But I'm just seeing bills that are way outside.
And when you say that, Clint, I'm just wondering, how can an individual find out whether or not their bill, when they're looking at it and they see a procedure and a cost that maybe seems exorbitant to them, how do you comparison shop? Or how would you suggest a layman does that to know that that procedure there that we're unfamiliar with is overpriced?
Sure. Write the hospital billing department, ask them what the Medicare rate is for that, for whatever it is. Per room, per surgery, and those are the two things really the most expensive. The room and the surgery. What is the Medicare rate for that? They may not tell you, which kind of gives you an indication really of where the truth is. But if they're honest, they'll tell you what the Medicare rate is. And my understanding is there are going to be some prices published by the government here pretty soon. You'll have an opportunity then to go online and figure out what they do charge for various surgeries or various procedures. But you write the hospital and ask what the Medicare rate is compared to what you're paying and ask yourself, is it fair?
That is so interesting. And I'll tell you, I mean, comparison shopping, like you said, that may be coming down the line. As long as I'm convinced that I'm not someone who just wants to go the cheap route if I'm dealing with my health, and I know you don't either, but I can see doing comparison shopping and checking between different hospitals and finding one and saying, why is it so much more expensive at this hospital? Maybe they have a higher success rate. That might be enough for me to pay more. But you would say comparison shop sometimes if there's any way to check on it ahead of time. Let's just say, for instance, I had to pay out of pocket because I didn't have insurance for a colonoscopy. Okay? That's something where you get a general anesthesia generally, Clint. You're knocked out. And then you wake up a few minutes later after they check for polyps in your colon. Now, I don't know what one of those costs. I'm going to guess $1,500 or something like that. Could I call around to different hospitals and say, without insurance, how much is that colonoscopy going to cost me? And find out, well, this one over here is $700, this is $800, this one's $1,500, and pick one of them? Would you do that?
Well, you can certainly ask what the charge is, but you have insurance, and insurance is going to reimburse at a certain rate, and then your plan's going to tell you what you have to pay out of your pocket. I'm not really talking about the colonoscopy, Nick. I'm talking about people who are hospitalized for days or perhaps weeks, and they get a bill and you got a $25 charge for an ibuprofen.
Yeah.
You see where I'm going?
Gotcha.
I mean, it's the old Defense Department charging $25,000 for a hammer. When you look on there and you see those types of charges, you realize what they're doing. They're padding the bill because they know the insurance company's only going to pay a proportion of it. So the higher they pad the bill, the higher the insurance reimbursement will be. And as a consumer, we're obligated, I think, on behalf of ourselves and our own health insurance, to look these bills over with a fine-tooth comb and ask ourselves, is this right? Is this an overcharge? Because I think the hospitals are prepared for that inquiry, and that's where I think the negotiations are taking place. Because at the end of the day, they just want to get paid.
Fascinating. And I think hospitals bank on the fact that not everyone does what you just described. In fact, probably few do, though I think more will now. But, that's fascinating to me. And knock on wood, I've been relatively healthy. But I can tell you, Clint, thanks to you, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Gosh forbid if one of these days I have a major medical bill. Let's go to Joe. Joe, good morning. Hi, Joe.
Good morning, Nick. I want to reiterate what I've said before. For all the listeners to please listen to Mr. Kelly and what he tells you and what your rights and stuff can be. And the second thing is, can you imagine at these hospitals with this COVID going on, what chaos is going on with the doctors and the nurses being overloaded, overworked, and mistakes are going to be made. So you had a case here in town where I think they put the wrong death on the death certificate. So pay attention to what's going on if you can. And the third thing is, if Mr. Kelly has got a time, can he briefly run over the caps that our great legislators have put on these cases?
Yeah, okay.
Sure.
Sounds good. Go ahead, Clint. You know what? Handle that one
Let me
first.
take things in order that Joe's raised. They're great points. You know what this COVID's going to do, Nick, is it's going to reveal the character and the quality of caregivers in hospitals throughout Nashville. What I mean by that is, if you're sloppy, you can disguise it when times are good, a lot of times. But when you're sloppy and you're in a stressful period or a pandemic, that sloppiness is going to be revealed quickly. And so that's why I think some of these people who've been practicing longer than they should have, because they are what I call the repeat offenders, those that commit malpractice over and over and over again. They're the ones that are going to do it again during this pandemic. And they're not going to get away with it like they have in the past because, as Joe said, everybody's all hands on deck. And if you're not pulling your weight, you're going to screw up and injure somebody or kill them. So that's what I mean by the months down the road, what we're going to see is.
All right, Clint, hang on just a sec. We're having a little bit of an audio problem there with the last couple of words you said. We're going to take a break, see if we can clean that up, and we'll come right back with you. Stay tuned, because I want people to be able to hear that. It's just kind of gurgling a bit. So we'll be right back with Clint Kelly. Let him finish answering that and take more calls right after this.
This is a Storm 5 weather update.